Hello. Welcome to the Executive Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alex Mearns. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Sharad Lal. Sharad and I met at the Asia Pacific Speakers Association of Singapore. And I joined because I'm working on becoming a better public speaker. I'm just very much a beginner. But Sharad is a very accomplished speaker. He is a keynote speaker. He also runs talks and workshops, programs and seminars for corporates in Singapore. And he founded his own business. So we met immediately and we hit it off. We got on really well and we decided to do this podcast together. Sharad's also been in the trenches. He worked for P&G and BCG, so he's ex-corporate. And it's very interesting to me to meet people that worked in large corporate organizations, had some kind of change in their life, some kind of catalyst or epiphany, and set up their own businesses. So I'm really interested about his journey and really how he approaches the business community, corporate community, and how he helps them. So, without further ado, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm very looking forward to this conversation.
Great. So maybe we can start off. Originally, you're from India, right?
That's right.
And then you moved to Singapore, like myself,
Yes.
as an expatriate. I read some of your bio, and it said you were from a poor family, but you were a maths geek, and I identify with that because I was also a maths geek as well. I'm interested to know a little bit at the start, so we can sort of tee that off. Yeah.
So my family was okay, luckily, but I was from a very small town. We lived very humble lives, but on television, people were traveling the world, jet setting. This was the Western world. And to me, that was what happiness was. And to get there, it became clear my path was to sit down, put my head down, and work hard. And that's when I started focusing on academics. And I found that I loved mathematics. And I did very well in maths. And that then got me into a good college, a good university, which then finally got me to Singapore. So that was the love of math in that town. It was like my passport out to a better life, as I thought about it at that stage.
Did you work hard because you're, in traditional Asian societies, your parents kind of push you to?
India was changing fascinatingly at that stage. So my parents actually put me to a British school initially.
Okay.
And then it became clear to my parents that that's going to make him like a little bit of a gentleman, but it's not really going to give him a career. And that's why they got me back to a local school where I focused on academics. And once I was focusing on academics and doing well, that set the way for my career.
Okay, cool. So that set you up for the move to Singapore. And then you came here when?
2002. The first job I had after business school was with P&G, as you mentioned. So that was like a really good business school to go to. And that is why people worked hard, because once you get into that kind of a business school or one of these engineering colleges, your life changes overnight. And for a lot of folks who had gone to that business school with me, their first salary was greater than their entire family made all their life.
Wow.
So that's the difference that it could make, because of which people really, really worked hard to change the trajectory of their life. It's more like you need not be from a rich family or a known family.
Yes.
You work hard and you can change your life.
Yes. And so then, so you moved to Singapore?
Yes. I moved to Singapore. I started my career with P&G in marketing. I did that for 3.5 years. Very interesting time to be in Singapore with P&G. P&G was just setting up operations here. I was working across Southeast Asia, did some projects in Australia. So the first time I was actually seeing the world because I lived in India. And P&G had a very good culture of people from multiple countries. So for the first time, I was interacting with people from Philippines. My boss was American. There were British people, lots of people from Southeast Asia, Singaporeans, Indians, this whole eclectic mix. And I think that was a great state of development. I was 24 at the time.
Yeah.
And that really helped me see other cultures, but also develop in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds really fun. And originally you said you were motivated by the kind of materialistic influence of the Hollywood 1980s.
Yes.
And of course, you would have been making money when you
Yes.
started, but presumably you were getting a lot more by interacting with different cultures and
Yes.
things like that.
I was. So that was interesting. So there was, like, I call it the achievement mindset.
Yes.
And that's what I had, like, work hard and get something more.
Yeah.
Work hard and get something more, move up in life. And I thought that was the game of life. So that's how I moved from the small town to a good uni, to P&G, to BCG, set up multiple businesses. But in 2013, I suffered a huge personal loss.
Mm.
So I lost my loved ones.
Mm.
And at that stage, losing my loved ones just completely shook my world out of nowhere.
Mm.
And that made me question during the healing process that is this the way to live life? Do we just stack up achievements? And at the end of the life, if you've got all your trophies and achievements and possessions, would that be a good life? And I remember a visual like sitting alone in my house. It was in the darkness and I looked around and there were many of these lovely things I'd gotten. But I was alone and realized these are not things that are going to help me. And that's when I started questioning how should we live life? It was the first time I questioned it. And I read all I could. So I never used to read before. So I went into the spiritual world, religion, psychology, philosophy, read everything I could, got into yoga, meditation, went on a whole journey for 3-4 years, which trying to figure out how we should live life. And all these things had different things to say. Like they had their own version of it. But there was one clear truth across, which was ridiculously simple. The path to lasting happiness, the way to live life is deep inside. We know inside how we should live life. And so it's so ridiculously simple. Why don't we do that? Because all our life, right from childhood, we're told, let's do this. Once we achieve something, people clap, then we'd go for the next thing. This whole external achievement mindset comes from the way society is set up. And there's a reason for that. But doing that for 30, 40 years, we lose touch with what truly is important. And once we get a glimpse, we cancel all this noise, these externalities, and we go deep inside and we get a glimpse of what's important to us. To me, that is purpose.
Yeah.
And then we can build our life around that.
Yeah, no, that's really profound. And I think about the same a lot, obviously. And maybe many people do who've left corporate life and set up their own businesses, which are more aligned with their values and hopefully their purpose. But there's so much noise around us and influence.
Yes.
Family, friends, media, historical traumas which have been passed down without getting too woo-woo. But for you, when you lost your loved ones, that was a big wake-up call.
Yes.
Was it there beforehand? Before 2013, this was this, when was it there, but you were kind of ignoring it, or was it stuff deep down? When you reflect back, what do you
a great question.
feel was going on?
I think there's always that part there, but I was never in touch with my inner world. I was just looking outside, and I was going after one achievement after another. I was going about, all right, now I set up my company. This is the kind of business I have. This is the amount of money I'm making. Let me now set up another company. I was all in that land. And because of that, this was always there, but I never had access to it. I never thought that looking at the internal world, looking at what really, there's a whole world inside me. I never fully realized that. And I thought people who have this bent towards spirituality or slowing down, at that stage, I thought these guys are not ambitious people. These people are not high performers. For a person like me, I don't have time for that. And there used to be this was 2013, at least my perception then was anyone who goes in that path suddenly taps out and doesn't do well. So that's not for me. I just need to keep going. And society told me the same thing.
Yeah. Is it like a yin-yang relationship between a yogi at an ashram in India versus a high performer at an investment bank in New York?
So that's such an interesting point.
Yeah.
That's what happens to us in our process. And I've noticed that not only in myself, now I work with people around purpose. That's how many of us tend to go, because we go so much in one space. We're over-indexing for 30, 40 years, like you said, the New York banker, which is the high performer. We're so much indexing that when maybe a tragedy happened in my case, sometimes people hit their 30s and 40s and they're top of the mountain and realize they're not happy. So it's like an existential crisis. Whatever hits you at that stage, you want to go towards the other extreme.
Yes.
And I went like, I said, money is bad, ambition is bad, performance is bad. And whatever I'd done, I put it all the way down. And I went to the other extreme. I didn't go physically to an ashram.
Yes.
I may have done one or two kind of things, but I contemplated doing that.
Yes.
And I see many people do that. But what happens then is you're moving from one lopsided way of life to a completely different lopsided way of life. And like you said, in this yin yang, your answer lies in between. And for me, that's the process of purpose. It's that tug of war.
Yes.
In which you're clarifying what is important to you and what is your path. And for me, I came back and said, money is not too bad. It enables things.
Yes.
But the way I was looking at it and grasping, and there's a Buddhist concept that I can share, where Buddha talks about having things with an open hand. So you enjoy it. If it goes, it goes. Versus clenching your fist and not letting it go.
Yes.
That's a different way of looking at it. So I'm more like, all right, money is good. I, of course, don't want to lose it, but I'm not going to clench and go crazy. But I'm going to enjoy what it gives me. Ambition is good. But when it gets over me, when it becomes part of my identity, when I compete, I get jealous, I do weird stuff based on ambition, then it's gone astray. But ambition is good. Achievements are good. There's nothing wrong with achievement. But if I'm only focused on achievements, then there's a problem. So it took me 3-4 years to realize the yin yang that you talked about, where there were internal battles. And also these battles play out in life. When you might think of things in a certain way, but when you go through life and you see yourself pulled to another way, then you start clarifying your values and figuring out your path towards purpose.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And those extremes that we sort of jump to, that's certainly something I've done a lot. And I feel like, so for example, I was all about hedonism and making money, then switched to starting my own business and helping people and not so worried about the money side of things. Or we can look at it in diet. So I had a terrible diet. I was drinking, smoking, no exercise. Just suddenly, hardcore paleo diet, exercising 4 times a week. But actually the answer is, and I find that personally, as I yo-yoed between those extremes, you then, you kind of meet around the middle. And
that's the process.
Now you're kind of more like this, and it just happens more naturally.
Yes. The process happens. I love that. In various things in life, the process starts happening more naturally. So right now it was career, but later it could be like things like diet and other things that people are making changes in. You may not go through the extremes, because I think one of the things that happens is you, at least for me, once you go down this path of purpose, you're better sync with yourself, with your internal world. And the feedback loop is faster, because of which you clarify things and you get into the part of the yo-yo tug-of-war where you need to be faster.
Yeah, no, it's quite true. No, it's great what you're saying there. It's really making me think a lot. I love having a podcast guest on. It really makes me reflect on my own stuff. Yeah. And I was also thinking about, with me personally, about like how much the influence of our parents have dictated, what we do in life. And if I did that, then my dad's going to be super, super proud of me.
One of the questions, there's a coach
called, I'm sure this is big in India as well as the Brits, right?
It's huge in India.
Parental approval.
Parental approval is huge. In fact, I had a British client when I was a coach. And he would still seek his father's approval in everything he did. He's like a 45, 50-year-old man. And his father had passed away 10 years back.
Yeah. Default behavior
there
patterns.
You go. Those are the patterns.
These need to be unlearned, right? In order
it takes a while to unlearn it.
Not easy. You need a good coach.
Yeah. Well, we work together, and at least I think the first stage is identifying it. Understanding that this is my pattern, because just understanding has a huge power to it. So each time it happens, you can, and then you're in touch with your internal world, you can catch yourself doing it. You may not want to change it to begin with, but slowly, once you understand it, you start making some changes to it, you get the better way of managing it. It may never go away fully, but you'll have better techniques of managing it. And then claiming what's important. And sometimes it could be a painful process if your father or your parent is still there, when you're claiming yourself from your parent, because then if they're alive, there are 2 people who are doing that process, and the other person notices it as well. And you're entrenched in it, and that other person's not happy, you're not happy. No one wants to change a certain set pattern.
Yeah, because there's a certain comfort in that.
There's a comfort in that. And that tough pattern, to change it takes a very painful process. And I think I've had that with my mother, where it was like a 3-4 year managing, where I realized a lot of our love and things were based out of compulsion. There was a pattern in which we fitted. I feel now we've come to a stage, not fully, but we are still there, where a lot of our connection is based on love versus compulsion. I can still do what I think is important for me without craving for her approval, and we could disagree. So we're getting there, but it took a lot of work, a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, I think when it comes to parents, it's very hard for us as children to change them. No. And I don't even think we should stress too much about changing them.
Yes.
We've just got to do what's really best for us. And
but that
being respectful of the different value systems.
I think even if you're respectful, it gets sometimes difficult depending on the pattern.
Yeah.
And there's this emotional tug that you have. There's guilt that could come. So it may not be for your parent because they need to deal with their own stuff. But even we will be dealing with guilt, shame while doing this.
Yeah.
And that itself is so difficult. So we'd still want a happy outcome. Because if that doesn't happen for, let's say, some of us, because that relationship, like for example, the one I described with my mother, it's a very important relationship. The answer is not to let that relationship go. The answer is to evolve it.
Yes.
And that is why it's more complicated.
Yes.
And that is why dealing with shame, guilt, patterns, all that is such a difficult thing. Luckily, I had a therapist who was helping me through it.
Yeah.
But it's a very difficult
It's a process, right? Yeah.
It's a process.
For me, the important part of the process, because I also work with a coach, and I love those sort of nuggets of understanding. So that's why I do that thing. Yeah. And I love it, right? Yeah. And I'm like, that's totally worth the money because I want to have these little epiphanies, right? And I really enjoy that. And for me, because I enjoy it, it makes the process so much more rewarding.
Yes.
And I think there is a possibility for everyone to do that, even going to those dark places, because they're down there anyway. They're down there anyway, right? They're a part of you, yeah? So it's like you can bury it and you can put it in a box and you can pack it down there. It's still going to affect you negatively, just in a different way.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I think the two things that you said, one is it's already there. So versus closing your eyes and looking the other way and ignoring that it's there, with it affecting you every day, it's better to know it. And I love the first thing that you said. And when people do personal development work, a lot of them have that once I'm looking at myself and my pattern, and if I'm able to do it without judgment and without ego, I become the most interesting person I know.
Yeah.
Because I can see the intricacies of myself. Yeah. I can see how I'm behaving if this happens. Like like in the spiritual world, there's this concept of being a witness to yourself. So I'm a witness to myself. I'm witnessing the way I'm living my life. And I'm seeing if someone says something, how does it sit inside me? How do I react? How do I react after a few days? How do I hold back? Do I hold resentment? Does it come out later? I see all this stuff going on. And it's the most interesting thing if I take myself out of the equation and just see this process come out.
Yeah.
So I love that curious, interesting thing of knowing yourself.
Yeah, so that's it. It's about being curious, I think a lot of people we'll move on to the corporate side. It's very interesting because obviously you work with a lot of high performers, high achievers. We do as well. And, it's interesting to me that generally there is an ego component, right? And dealing with this stuff, for me, is difficult, right? For a lot of people that we meet in our world. But let's look at it from a male perspective. I think it's actually very manly to work on yourself because it's bloody difficult initially, right? Because we're used to bearing it. So it's actually, if you're a high achiever, which means you're not scared of hard work, then you should challenge yourself and think, maybe you're not do some hard work by looking internally as well. I
love that.
Yeah. So like emotional hard work.
Yeah. So I think that's very interesting points there. I think first it's difficult when people are with other people, high performing male are with other male. And like you see, when men are together, it's all about one-upmanship.
This is genetic, right?
It's genetic. That's how we've kind of evolved. But in one-on-one, people start opening up because they realize these problems are there. Second, once you can reframe, I love what you said, and that kind of worked even for me. Once you can reframe that, my next level of growth isn't going to be this other leadership skill or learning AI or doing any of this thing. But my next level of growth is going to come from this emotional understanding of myself. That is an area of growth. And if I get that, I'll be a better leader. I'll be a better dad. That's my personal growth area. And once it's reframed as an area of growth, it becomes a little easier to do it.
I think we're completely on the same wavelength here, which is great and super exciting. But you do a lot of work in since you left
Yes.
Boston, which was when did you?
So I left BCG long back in 2006.
You want to tie this back in, right?
Yeah,
So,
I'll tie it back. So I left BCG in 2006.
Okay.
And then I set up an agency business.
Yeah.
But this was a pure profit, solid business, which was a good cash flow business. On the side, in 2013, when I suffered that huge loss, I was doing an array of things where I was clarifying stuff for myself around purpose. The first activity was in 2014 when I set up a nonprofit. This was to help people in their careers. So that took me to life coaching. I love that, but I realized personally for a period of time that just doing this one-on-one coaching took away part of my personality. I like being with many people. I got a CEO to run my company during COVID 2020. That's when I started a podcast in 2021. My first manager, he'd become a partner, left BCG, listened to it. We hadn't been in touch for 15 years. And he said, can you come and do some workshop? Because I like what you said about Buddhism, Stoicism. And that's when I tried it and it worked well. And he signed me up for many. And then I realized this entire space that I'm in now, where we met in Speakers Association, speaking, workshops, leadership program, this itself is a huge career that I like. So that's where I am now. This entire path to purpose was parallelly running for 10 years. And only when I clarified it, I sold my company a few months back. And I've gone all in into that because I feel this can give me purpose. But at the same time, it is practical. It can pay the bills. It's strategic.
Yeah.
They both come together.
Yeah. It's that Venn diagram of overlap between what we love doing, what brings home the bacon, and then getting that crossover as much
Absolutely
as possible.
right.
But you're now taking that concept to a group setting. Yeah. So let's say you're working, with a large corporate and you're working with, 8 to 10 leaders on a program. So that feels like a very challenging environment. It's something I would like to explore, but I'm interested
That's a great question.
Yeah. Tell me about it. What does that world look like?
The world, it took me a while to figure that world out. Yeah. I think the first thing that needs to happen is it has to be set up well as a learning, development, leadership program that will be useful. So for example, I took the same thing around purpose and I said, let's do something around mental health. And HR got me in, we're doing stuff around mental health. And I realized that people were not really keen. They were just ticking the box. They will go just to attend because HR asked them to do. And it's exactly the way you mentioned. They're not going to get anything out of it. It depends on the attitude you come with. The other experience I had was he sets this up as a leadership program that through purpose, you're going to be better engaged and do better in terms of work and increase performance. Okay. Now, so that's the setup part.
So you've got to buy in.
You have to get a proper buy-in.
Yeah.
People out there might think, oh, this guy's going to do some stuff that is not applicable to my world or etc. Now they realize he's talking to me. So that's the first setup part. The second part, I think, is you have to, among these group of leaders, you have to enroll the senior few folks and get them to open up.
Do you find that, let's say you have a group of leaders, are they from a personal development perspective, and this is quite judgmental, do you feel they're generally similar, or can there be very different stages?
Typically, there are 3 groups, and I call it out before I do it as well, which helps people identify. So there's one set of people who are already deeply in touch with themselves. And the exercises that I do, I tell them, will just help you deepen the experience, but you're already doing pretty well. There's a second group of people who, whatever I do, they've had a bad day, the son is unwell, something's wrong, this is not going to work. It's okay, just relax. Don't put pressure on anything working. And some of them actually, this works after 6 months or whatever. Don't worry about it, no pressure. I call it out because this is the BCG expectation setting. The third is where most people lie. There's a restlessness. You're not sure where that restlessness comes from. What we're going to do is open up a path for inquiry going forward. So for them, for the first time, for many people in their life, they actually look at their internal world. For the first time, many of them look inside and say, wow, I didn't realize this, but solving this problem gives me so much of satisfaction when I think. I hate it at the time, but when I think about a problem for days, it gives me so much satisfaction. Or when I grow, I remember when I could do something like this, it gave me purpose. So they, for the first time, have this thing that even if I'm not paid, I like these kind of things.
Yeah.
In what I'm doing, there's already some purpose hidden. So that's where most of the people arrive, with that restlessness. And it's about clarifying that purpose is now big. You don't need to go and save the world. It's in these small things that you're doing. You're already getting purpose. So let's clarify and get deep in that experience.
That's super interesting that is the largest group.
Yes. Because most of the people are around 40s. So they're more C-suite level. Slightly below senior leaders in C-suite.
So that's the gray area group, right? So there's restlessness and they're ready to make some changes.
Because a lot of these people, and maybe fitness is still a little more mainstream, I feel, that people already get this stimuli. So people who are already fit will already do it. Some people will tap out, and there's very few in between because there's so many tools available.
Yes.
But self-awareness, purpose, what am I doing in life? People are quite often just stuck in the middle there.
Yes.
Because then they move forward with life.
Because there's very few avenues for them to get help. Because help is basically, when I started Levitize, I was thinking of guys my age, 40s and 50s, what they do. And what they do when they have a problem is go to the doctor or smash it in the gym.
Yeah.
Neither rich are solving problems of what are your values in life, what's your purpose, what's your ikigai, right?
Exactly right.
And
doing is easy for people, doing stuff. This is a little bit more being and seeing and evaluating.
So what would they think they could do? Well, I could go and see a psychologist, but I'm not crazy. Why would I do that?
That's the thing.
And then that's it.
Yeah.
So I think the personal development workshops that you're running and programs are fantastic because it just gets people, I can talk about this stuff.
Yeah. What struck me as you were speaking, it's also like exactly, we kind of said it, but just putting it in a different way. It's meeting people where they are.
Yes. Yeah.
And we don't shame them.
Yes.
We don't say, but we meet them where they are. Because if you don't meet them where you are, if you're on a high moral ground, you've lost them. If you're talking down, patronizing, there's a whole lot of the way things, you just lose them. But if you can meet them where they are, that gives the best shot. And then help them just shift a bit. That's it. That's all you need to do, I feel.
Yeah.
Because then the person takes it up on their own.
Yep, I 100% agree with you. But because if it's easy for me to make changes, and it was, interestingly, even though I'd abused my body for so long, it doesn't mean it's easy for everyone.
And everyone has their own journey.
So far, the 7 years of working with Levitize is to exactly find out where people are at.
Yes.
What are the elephants in the room?
Yes.
Name them in a non-judgmental way and ask them, so where's a good place to start?
Yes.
And it really should be client-led.
100%. 100%.
But if there's a knowledge gap, we can help fill that in.
Yes.
So then they can think, okay, I could work on that. That would be a great place to start. Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Letting people realize it's actually not as difficult as you think.
Yeah.
It never is it?
Yeah.
Never is.
And very often, one of the things that I also do I have like the process of getting to purpose. I rarely ask them to add an activity because quite often these guys think this guy's going to come in and he's going to tell me to meditate every morning.
Yeah.
Or he's going to tell me to do something else.
Yeah.
And if you really think about most of these people, they're already stretched.
Yeah.
Now, after this, I'm not going to give them something else to do on top of their stretch because it becomes an area of stress. So what I always tell them is, don't do anything new. Can you remove 5 things?
Yeah.
And then I give a framework on how to remove it, purpose versus strategic. There's certain things that are not purposeful and aren't strategic. Can you see how you can just remove it? That's it. Just remove some stuff. Get some space.
Yeah.
Because I've already shown you a little bit of the inner world. Once you get some space over a period of time, then you can explore, change, do that. But I don't want to leave you by adding a new thing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Looking at my own development when I was in a financial research company, and I was quite successful on that side of things, but I was not taking care of myself personally. And when I started looking at my purpose, my ikigai, I was doing a lot of self-help books, self-help workshops, online courses and things like that. And that's how I did it. And there's a million different ways you can do it, but that worked for me. And as I started working out my values and my purpose, then I thought about what I wanted my business to look like. But first of all, I thought about what do I want my life to look like and what kind of business can fit around my life. Because normally it's all about the business, isn't it? And how do we mash our life around our business? So I looked at it the other way around. And then you know what happened? Once I'd figured out what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, well, it might take me a couple of years to get that plan in place. I started enjoying the job that I was currently doing a lot more, even though nothing had changed in it. I just enjoyed it more. So by helping focus on my purpose and working out what I wanted to do, I just lifted me up energetically. I just felt better. And because I felt better, the job was more fun.
I love that.
But I hadn't made any changes.
So that is what happens to most people.
Yeah.
And I'll click on both of these. I'll click on the second one. I think for most of the people, it's not like after I do these seminars, suddenly the world is going to change. But exactly like you said, your motivation changes because you've done the work and realized that there are these elements that I love so much, and you bring a new amount of energy into it. So it gives you a different kind of energy, even though you're doing the same thing, because you find subconsciously or consciously the purpose hidden in things that you're already doing. So I think that's the first thing, where it need not be a big shift, but if the mindset shifts, you could find purpose in what you're doing exactly like the way you found it. The second thing I found very interesting that you said, and that's how many people are also now designing their purpose, and that's how I help them as well, is most people think that purpose is this work thing, that I need to shift my work from A to B. When in reality, it's exactly how you said. I need to shift my life design because as I'm getting to my 40s, life becomes very important. So I need to design my life in such a way that work fits in.
Yes.
And that is a holistic life.
Yeah.
And many people have the opportunity to do that. Of course, some people have dependencies, etc. It might take longer.
Yeah.
But that approach of either looking at life equally compared to work or life more prominently compared to work is a more sustainable way of creating a life of purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's exactly, I think that's great. And that's exactly what we did with Levitize.
Yeah.
Most gyms are open, 6 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night.
You don't
And I was
need
like,
to do that.
Now we're doing 9 to 6.
There you go.
Because I don't want to work in the morning.
There
And
you
if
go.
I'm running a small business, I'm going to have to.
Yes.
If it's open at 7, I'm not going to do that. So, okay. And then I was thinking, who can come in the middle of the day? What kind of people? People with flexible schedules, right? People who are more senior. So that's why we started doing that.
That's
but it was
such
all
a
based,
good example.
It was based on the life, my life, right? And what I wanted it to be like. We don't open on Saturdays. I do have someone who comes in Saturdays now, but we didn't open for 5 years. So I don't want to come in on Saturday. I want to hang out with my family,
There you go. Very great. I mean, that's perfect thinking. So that's the way a lot of people do it. So for me, exactly the similar thing. I got very excited about keynotes when I got into this. And then I realized the life of a keynote speaker is, because you're doing keynotes in different companies, you're traveling all over the place. You're hitting many organizations and you're traveling all the time. Quite often it's Saturdays, offsites. And if I don't want to travel that much, and if I don't want to do Saturdays, then keynote as my core offering does not work well.
Yes.
So then I went more towards workshops, which are during work hours with teams.
Yes.
I was trying to do some B2C stuff, but that would again happen on Saturday, and then that was off.
Yeah.
So once you have your life, this is the kind of life I want to live. I want to be able to spend time with my kids on Saturday, Sunday. I don't want to work beyond a certain period of time. Then how does my purpose fit in?
Yeah.
How does my work fit in?
Yeah.
And then you get life, work, and what's the amount of money that I need to live in Singapore? So you put all these things together, and slowly with iteration, you get somewhere.
Yeah. It's a super interesting. And I want to wrap up, not too much, but I want to talk about you mentioned a lot. You did have a lot of spiritual practices in 2013 when you lost your loved ones, and you put a lot of things in place as we do when we go through a period of change. We try a lot of different things to see what works. What I'm interested in is what sticks. So what health regimes, fitness regimes, what have you put in place that works for you?
So a few things have shifted when I've had 2 daughters. But one of the things that has almost consistently been there is the morning meditation. Right now, it's like 3-4 minutes. And sometimes I actually do skip it because it's the kids. But it would be 15 minutes or 30 minutes. But that kind of centers me. And when I don't do it, I miss that. That's one.
Yep.
The other thing that has stuck a lot is I think I've become a little more introverted that I've realized. I used to be an extroverted person, because of which I retreat from the world at 8 p.m., 7:30, 8 p.m. I don't take calls. I'm in my own space unless it's a weekend and I'm going out. So I've got that space to myself, whether it's reading, sometimes watching shows, sometimes doing a walk, listening to a podcast, unwinding before sleeping, but getting myself and time, which then sets up my sleep very well as well. So that's another thing that's stuck with me. Otherwise, I would be talking on the phone till late at night if it's needed, or I mean, I'm always available till the end, but that part has gone out. That's the second one. And that's related to sleep as well, because I've started sleeping now at 9:30, between 9:30 to 10, and I wake up at 6. I used to sleep at what, 12:30, 1?
Used to, yeah.
Used to.
Yeah.
That till 2013, even in 2013, I was sleeping at, I don't know, 12:30, 1. Binging shows, that's gone.
Yeah.
So I think sleep is one, meditation is one. Exercise, I exercise almost every morning. That's another one.
Yeah, I like that. These are similar to me, actually. I like to meditate every morning. One thing we do is an analysis with our clients to see whether a morning or evening meditation would be more beneficial.
How do you do that analysis?
Yeah, so it's quite simple. I do this emotional log, and I get them to log it. So remember you mentioned like guilt and shame?
Yeah.
Like shame is the most negative emotion you can feel on a magnitude scale, along with sort of grief, despair, loss. And then right at the top, you've got joy, love, gratitude. So I just give them in a number from like 1 to 24. And then in the morning, I get them to mark it.
Oh, nice.
So, how are you feeling this morning? A bit pessimistic. Okay, that's an 8. How are you feeling, just before you go to bed? Oh, I feel awesome, 3 or something like that. Tired. And so then I log it, and then I see the average over 10 days when they feel the worst, in the morning or the evening. So if people feel quite anxious when they get out of bed in the morning, it's good to do a meditation to kind of center yourself, seize the day properly. For some people, the day just builds. They feel great, but the day just builds up and it's very overwhelming, and they need to mentally detox before they go to sleep. And so then I would recommend a meditation.
That's so powerful. How did you come up with that? Was it just common sense?
So I worked with a life coach that got me to do this exercise to see how I was feeling. Because she says, "Are you a happy person?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a pretty happy guy." And she goes, "Okay, I want you to log this." And I think I was just doing it in the morning. And then I thought, I don't think I'm actually quite as happy as I thought. I was kidding myself, actually. So I thought it's a really good way to log our emotional state, because we log our physical state.
Yeah.
We can go to the doctor and he can measure stuff, but how do we measure our emotional state? I mean, it's generally just self-reflection. Even if you go to a psychiatrist, part of the medical industry, they're going to give you a questionnaire to fill in.
Yeah.
And based on that, they're going to give you medical drugs. So so I really like the meditation. Yeah.
Very cool.
And I also like to unwind in the evening as well. And generally I'm a bit earlier than you, 6:30 is when I'm done.
Right. Oh,
6:30,
very
so
cool.
I don't do any.
All right.
Well, no work stuff after 6:30. So if you're giving, so I always ask everyone the top 3 tips to give to executives. I personally think meditation is a really hard tip to give, because I find that a lot of people say I'm too busy to meditate, or I can't turn my brain off, which is ironic because these are exactly people that
Who
need to meditate. But I think meditation is something you need to find individually and on your own.
Yeah.
But what would you give the
I think
least resistance tips?
Least resistant tips.
Yeah.
Writing. Sometimes it's just easy, free flow writing.
Yeah.
I do that as well. So meditation, all these are ways to get in touch with your inner world, and writing without any filters, just writing out. And people do that sometimes in the morning. I've done that when I wake up, I just write.
Yeah, that is a good one. Yeah.
That's a very good one, of just putting everything out there, so that then all your emotions that are built up are taken out of the way, and you can actually function. And over a period of time, you also start seeing patterns. So one would be just free flow writing whenever it works for you. Before you go to bed or early in the morning, start with writing half a page. Maybe you can write longer, 3 pages is good. Have a notepad with a pen which sits in your sleep like in your bedroom itself where you can write. I think that's one thing I would recommend to people. Exercise is always big. I think for a lot of others, especially when you're over 40s, I think strength training is important. I never used to do it when I was younger because I thought it was only aesthetics. But now I realize how good it is for making you live longer, having better energy, making sure your muscles don't contract. So I think strength training, whichever way, resistance training, weights, whatever you do, I think is a extremely important one once you hit 40. And the third one, let me just throw in a one to see if it hits people. Just maybe a hobby. We've lost days of having a hobby. Now, at the same time, I say don't increase. If you like overwork, don't add a new thing. But if you do have some time, whether it's, I don't know, for me, I just started playing the piano and I found it interesting because it makes my brain work in a different way. Taking a walk could be a hobby, could be anything. Like if there's a hobby, as long as it does not clutter your cluttered life. That's the last thing we want.
Yeah. No, I love those. Those are all brilliant. Those are all fantastic. Writing is good. I've done that myself. Many times I used to write, I keep a dream diary. And if I woke up in the middle of the night and had a funny dream, I'd write it down.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Not really quite sure what to do with that information, but if I could find it in my drawer somewhere, I could probably put it into ChatGPT and ask it to interpret it for me.
Have you heard of this lady called Tokopa Turner?
No.
Wonderful lady. She's done a lot of dream work based on Carl Jung. Carl Jung did a lot of work on
the
dream
psychologist.
Yes. But she's kind of brought it in a very interesting way where she even has courses of helping you, just basic templates of interpreting dream if you want to get into that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way because dreams are things that are repressed, which are trying to also come out.
That's right, yeah. I mean, particularly nightmares as well, repressed and suppressed negative emotions coming up, yeah.
And sometimes gives you hints to the next stage in life.
Yeah, I love the exercise side of things. Yeah, strength training is so important. Obviously, running a gym and doing a lot of strength training.
You know that better than everyone.
Yeah, it's so important, yeah. Yes. And the hobby is good, yeah. Hobbies are great. Particularly, I think, in the corporate world where we're very left brain and we're not so much on the creative right brain. Like you said, you're playing the piano. You're really exercising a part of the brain which has probably been overlooked, right?
Exactly right.
Painting. Yeah.
Painting's another huge one.
Singing. Yeah. Karaoke.
Whatever. Maybe a social karaoke works for you.
Brilliant. That's been fantastic. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex. I loved it.